Hi, it's RJ Knight. Here doing music talks article response to more like of a redo kind of a podcast we did before relating to Kanye West's "Piss on Your Grave." I'll respond from that. Um, when I did it, I was a little tired, so I'm redoing it here to be a little bit more concise and a little bit more clear. But you'll definitely have the original. You can click below and read the listen to the original below. Of course, I've always been off the dome, so I'm gonna answer it and reread the questions now. First question is, what is slavery? Does Kanye West use the term correctly in his music? Well, again, slavery is when someone forcefully takes a liberty from somebody. That means the person has does not have the ability to choose to do otherwise at all. Um, that's rough. That's pretty much what slavery is. There's a difference between freedom and slavery. I'll have a link below to something else similar that I talked about this with, and I'll expand upon this in another video, actually, really going into slavery a bit more. But that's in a nutshell what slavery is. You have other things like serfs and servants and things like that. So, but those are actually not slaves. And when Kanye West talks about being a slave in his music videos, he's actually that's not what the term slavery is. Um, Again, when most people in North America, a Western kind of ideology usage of the word slave. This is a more modern usage of the word slave. It's actually incorrect, and it's similar to how people use the term racism. They just use the word racist for now everything, and and I talked about this before. I think I said people use the word rape. They use it incorrectly, and one of the reasons for this is because the words have power. So they just keep using it. It's like spamming something. And when you do something a lot like that, you use something, it loses value. So um, value comes from scarcity, right? So how scarce something is. It doesn't absolutely, but this is one of the factors that produce value is scarcity. So when you have an abundance of something, it's not as valuable as when you don't have an abundance of it. Um, so example, seawater is not very valuable, right? Normally on coastal cities, right? But it might be more valuable in a desert, than it would otherwise be. So I'm not exactly sure, but you could convert that into actually drinkable water, so that holds value. So yeah, so so that's that for that question. Moving on to question number two: is Kanye West encouraging anger towards executives? Um, these were the original questions, by the way, so I'm reading them. I don't know. I don't really. Yeah, I guess, but I wouldn't say so because there has been anger towards executives for a while, which is kind of is silly. Um, Over like with the Occupy Wall Street and all of these ideas about fat cats and stuff. And now, look, anybody that knows me knows that I talk about this stuff quite a bit. With people I know and try to educate them on stuff. And people try to make these generalizations and clump everything together. And it's because they're not only are they not educated on something, and being educated on something is not like the greatest thing ever. Again, you could be educated wrongly. Usually, education leads to indoctrination. So, um, but the most people are not wise, just in general, period. And when you had these movements and stuff, there was all these statements being made and these ideas that generally float around, and they've been in the culture for a while. Even when I was a kid, watching cartoons and stuff, and they're just there, and they mutate and synergize with other things, and it's really odd. So I think, that strain is there. So when Kanye West is getting upset, it's kind of hypocritical because he's also an executive in his own industry, or his sector. So it's like, it's just the perspective that you look at it from. So when he's angry with Phil Knight or whatever it is, or other people, it's like, and he's like, yeah, you're making us slaves. It's, as we could clearly see from Kanye's actions, he would do the same if he was in power. And it's very similar to how the Tea Party people, not the Tea Party, I mean, the Occupy Wall Street and other protesters are. Once you put them in power, the majority of them, they do the same thing as the people that they were accusing. They're actually saying, we want to be that, we want to be you. We want to have the power you have to do it. So they're actually trying to gain that power in their own way, because they cannot do it like in a small group, right? Like the other people can as a minority. They have to do it as a majority, right? To have a greater sum to, to equal it to the same function. So it's a similar thing. It's like a lot of black people that cry racism and hatred of white people or the white man. I'm not saying every black person, but are usually would like to be white, and would like to take the benefits, make white slaves, would have slaves, and they have a slavery mindset, a master slave. And the thing in yourself is to kill the master slave complex and to kill all of that inside of yourself, period. So all of that thing, all these things we're talking about should die. So, when you're saying that, is he encouraging anger towards executives? I would say yes and no. One, because he probably wouldn't want people to encourage it to themselves. This is really not a super clear question, because there's no example or period. It's just like super general. And it's like, yeah, when he's encouraged, like, again, it's Kanye West would want to be the executive, kind of. He is an executive, and a lot of the stuff Kanye says comes from the popular culture around him anyway. Like, there's not, it's like there's no definite answers. It's just like he just says convoluted things like the average person, but he's just Kanye, and then he's more histrionic and hysterical about it at times. That's pretty much just it. So I would say yes, and there's a bigger yes than there's a smaller no. Question 3. Should Phil Knight have returned Kanye West's phone calls? Is he losing anything by ignoring Kanye? Yeah. Okay. So, should Phil Knight have returned Kanye West's phone calls? I don't know. It's that's up to Phil Knight. This is really like a relationship that you're asking me. Like, I don't know what Kanye's values are or Phil Knight's values are. I know some of them, but I know even less about Phil Knight. So I mean, I don't know with that. That's kind of weird. Um, I don't do like other people. I see someone and I just start talking like I know everything about their lives. You go on the internet or anywhere, people just start assuming all these things. That's like, how would you know this unless you're psychic? Um, and then the second part is he losing anything by ignoring Kanye? Yeah, you could always be losing something, right? So, um, is Phil Knight at a disadvantage? When you look at it, Kanye loses more from a negative relationship with Phil Knight than Phil Knight would lose from Kanye. Phil Knight can go his entire life without dealing with Kanye directly and be totally fine, and his standard of living isn't really going to drop. His peace of mind probably isn't going to drop, if we're assuming this rationally. It's going to be very difficult for Kanye, though, to go through life without interacting with Phil Knight. So, and what I mean by that, let's look at it from the perspective of making money. It's going to be difficult for Kanye to do business without interacting with Phil Knight's assets, right? and making the money in some way, shape, or form. It's less likely that you would have a reverse with Phil Knight and Kanye. So like Phil Knight can actually go without dealing with Kanye, without talking to Kanye, and still make money from dealing with Kanye, right? So from yeah, I mean from not directly speaking to Kanye, I guess. So yeah, Phil Knight could it's an acceptable thing for Phil Knight to do. Like the average person has to deal with their boss. Like if they don't deal with their boss, they're going to get fired, and then they literally can't live anymore. Well, not they can't live, but they can't maintain their property. So in that regard, they can't afford it. Kanye can afford it, but it's definitely going to affect his wealth. Well, not drastically, but it will affect his wealth. Well, less so with Phil Knight. So that's the gist of what I'm saying. That I've said a little bit more. So hopefully it's very clear. Question 4. Hip hop has a lot of lifestyle rappers glorifying a high luxury lifestyle. Does does this incentivize people to work harder so they can have these things? Sorry about that. It's just a lot of people for some reason today are like blaring music as they're by, and they're just like it's a funny kind of thing. Hip hop has a lot of lifestyle rappers glorifying a high luxury lifestyle. Does this incentivize people to work harder so they can have these things? Does it hurt people? I think I did an okay job answering this last time. This is also like a weirder kind of question, but oh man, these questions are weird. Hip hop has a lot of lifestyle rappers glorifying a high luxury lifestyle. Okay, that's a statement of. Does this incentivize people to work harder so they can have these things? Yes, it incentivizes some people to do that. I guess most people would want it. But does it hurt people? It can hurt people. And it may not. It does actually, as a net, it hurts people. This negative image. So I think I answered it pretty good last time. But I'm gonna try to make it shorter. So, because it's so many other factors that you have to go to the lead up to see why it hurts people, right? It's not immediately clear, why it's so bad. And I was short the other time as well. I tried to be short. Um, when rappers are bragging about their luxurious jewelry and things like that, a lot of the decisions that they're telling people to make are actually not wise financial decisions, and they're not wise economically for everyone, right? Because like finance is really kind of like an individual, so they're not wise things to do, and like you should actually not wear $250,000 worth of jewelry around your neck. If that's your savings, that doesn't seem very wise because it's easy to take, and it also incentivize me to steal it. So that's not very wise. A lot of this stuff comes from other stuff like misunderstandings of crime, of the development of crime in black urban communities. So it has a lot of stuff behind it. A lot of these stuff, like when people see them, they just see this thing and they just nebulously talk about it with like all of these things in it, and it's conflated, and like it's like with it's complex because of that, and the way it's phrased is usually not really divided, so it could be answered very simply. So these questions are always so weird. When I read these questions, they're weird for me because like I it's not easy ever to answer them. They're so broad in a way, like nebulous the way that they're phrased. Um, so yeah, like again, it hurts people because like they're learning bad finance. They're learning how to make bad financial decisions, and it keeps them impoverished. A lot of the people that are going to want this stuff are going to be impoverished people, so they're going to see it and go like, yeah, I want that, and and they don't know how to save or invest their money wisely and stuff. And a lot of people that were attracted to it are going to be um, usually are foolish people on average. So it's what it is. And a lot of this goes back also to women. The luxury lifestyle rappers do this stuff to attract women. The men and women are attracted to it for different reasons. The men are attracted to it because they can have these things on usually to get women, and the women are attracted to it because they want to take these things from the men. And all of this is very negative, and it literally exacerbates the divide between men and women on a subconscious level, and it just magnifies it and it grows it. So I think that's a more concise response. And I went into some other things before, and the other one you could click and watch the old one, where I go into other factors. I really would have to do a series on it to break up each thing to kind of like answer some of these questions, because the questions are such a way that you cannot definitively answer them without going back and explaining other things. Like, yeah. So question 5. Can late night television performers fill the gap in discovery of new artists now that radio is getting less diverse? The short answer is yes, it can. I mean, yeah, anything can. It's does it do it well, and why does it do that? Why is this going on? Like, this is not very clear, right? It's just like critiquing, like, yeah, that's like trends and stuff, and it's like, well, why? Um, well, radio is getting less diverse for economic reasons, and I think I answered that in the last one. I'm going off memory, so there's economic reasons for this. Why radio is getting less diverse. There's a lot of them. It's not just social reasons, because social actions and social reasoning is ties in heavily with economic situations and reasons and factors, and it's hard to separate these two things. It's like literally trying to separate space from the idea of time, or time from the idea of space. It's very hard. For some people, it's impossible to do it, right? Even for good people, it's very, very hard. To separate a social thing from an economic thing is very hard. The average person talks about things socially, and they also separate events into like, this event is somehow isolated from all events, and every event in their lives is isolated. This is why they're unwise, and that is weird. Um, it's at best dumb. So when you're looking at this stuff, the economy is getting worse. People are, I mean, are the standard of living is actually decreasing. Now, in the United States of America, and to a lesser degree Canada, you have United States is like the world reserve currency, so it's like the biggest. It's the currency that everybody uses, puts things in. Like, it's the medium for all currencies. That's what that really means, right? To quickly explain what that is, it's kind of like what is cash, right? When you use cash, right, in the United States, you're using a fiat currency. What does that mean? It just literally means paper money, money that's not backed by anything. What does backed by something mean? It means that usually it's backed by an idea. So, like, I have a bunch of like 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 I'm a drug dealer and I have drugs, but I can't move all the drugs around all the time. when I'm making sales with a guy, right? But when we've been doing sales for a long time, so we trust each other. So I pretty much call him and tell him, hey, I'm good for one. It's like a tab, when people talk. So he's like, yeah, you got me for that amount, 200,000, blah, it's good. So me and him are expanding our dealings with other people. So now we start to write down on paper. So let's say there's no police. We're not to worry about police anymore. We start writing it down on paper. So these papers are like credit tickets. So it's like, each paper represents like, like there's 100 units of drugs or grams or milligrams or whatever. And then we put it on and we put it on, we put it on, we put it on. And because and we just changed the tickets. Why would we use the tickets? Is because let's say all the people that do drugs are dealing with each other now. It's not just me and this one guy. Us and other people in this expanded organization, because all the troops use it. That those tickets go around because they're really credit notes, like I promise you stuff, right? So if somebody comes to me with that, like with this ticket, then I know, oh, you got a ticket. Okay, all right. This is I could add up these tickets and it comes up to 100. Okay, let me give you 100 units of whatever, or 100 grams or whatever, right? Like that's what a unit is. So I give you that, and now you have that. A fiat currency would mean that like it's backed by nothing. So let me put it like this. So when you come with the ticket, I forgot to add this. Whatever is on that ticket, I have to have it to give it back to you. Like it's on me to actually have that amount of stuff, like of coke or a combination of drugs or whatever it is that you have a ticket for, right? A receipt for, right? I have to have that, right? When people start asking for it. A fiat version of this would mean that I don't have anything. I just tell you I have it. And so if you come to me now to turn in this ticket to get the drugs, I'm going to be like, yeah, just wait on that. Like, because we don't have it right now. So, but eventually one day we'll get it and we'll pay you. You see, like, it's not backed by any real stuff, right? So, like, if a problem happens, pretty much what everybody has is worthless. Like, right? It's like, what is like, and like, dog, I paid for these drugs, you know what I mean? And you're telling me that this receipt doesn't get me like my order, this bill doesn't get me my order, this ticket doesn't get me the drugs I wanted, I paid for it. So that's kind of what it is. It's not like the best, I'm doing it on the fly, this analogy, I'm trying to find something to make it relatable here. So that's what like a fiat currency is. So when I'm talking about this stuff, when I'm going back to the economy, when like I talk about the standard of living and stuff like that, and why I mentioned Canada before is that Canada's money is backed by something, like all the production in Canada, right? Like the raw materials that it mines and stuff. So it's always there's something, like it doesn't matter what happens in the world, those things will have some kind of value because people could use them to make fires or make swords or bullets or whatever, right? Here, there's nothing. In the United States of America, there's nothing. So you can't do that. Like, so that's a problem. But just like how the ticket represented like X drug or X combination of drugs, or X and Y or XYZ combination of drugs. That's actually a combination. When people go into the market, they use the American dollar as the standard for their combinations of different people's money. So like Indian money, Mexican money, Canadian money, British money, right? I'm not going to say the name of them. It just makes it simple by calling them all money because they're all money. So when they're trading with each other, they actually don't really trust each other or something like that. They're not sure. But they go, you know what? That American money is always good. Similar to how I said in the example, me and the first guy were good. Like we have a good trust. So it's like, those two guys are always trustworthy guys with the drugs. So we're gonna make all of the stuff backed by their tickets because they're good for it. Of course, I didn't explain the example the bestest, if you know what I mean. But you get the idea as I'm going up the head. And so what happens is, Um, like people all put the money in there, so they all do all their transactions in the money. So to back up their deals, they have to hold a certain amount of American dollars, right? So they take like American money and then they buy some and then they hold it so they can pay off any problem that arises, like interest or or something like that, like because people are like, yo, I don't trust you. Let me know, man. I'm good for it, dog. I'm gonna get your money like next week. Yo, hold on to this, man. I got this. I just got this from work. You know what I mean? I just got some money. Yo, just take this. You know what I mean? Give me a few more days. That's kind of what interest is. So that's why they hold the money in that kind of they have reserves. So it makes the money always valuable. So why did I say all of this stuff? Right? There's a reason why I said all this stuff. Because what this does is that it makes the economy here better than it would otherwise be. So if it wasn't, the economy would be drastically lower. And because of this, people are always buying a portion of it to hold the money, means that people are giving you guys money. So you're like, oh crap, we have more money than it would be. So that's why it doesn't look as bad. But what's actually happening is if you pay attention and you grade things by like how much something was in other areas, you'll see that it's depreciating and as it depreciates, you don't have the amount of choices you otherwise used to. So that does actually lower your standard of what you can do, like, right? That's your standard of life, your standard of living. So that's part of that. So radio stations are getting less diverse because they can't afford to field more fringe music. So when they're doing this, they're like, look, we put money into this. We need to make sure we get our money back, right? We don't want to go to guy and he doesn't have the money, or he doesn't have the drugs when we have the ticket. No, we want our money. Can't waste it. So we can't waste it. Forgive me, I just took a sipped some thing to drink. So they're going to invest into things that they're sure, right? So they're like, Drake is hot, this guy's hot. We're not playing things that won't give us the maximum return because we can't afford not to. And that's the difference when you go back in like the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, arguably, is that every other period was inherently wealthier than the period we are now. Massively wealthier. And they're wealthier in externalities. Like the externalities were better. They're not. So there's less now. Right? So like it's less valuable. Even if there's more quantity or arguably, right? It's less valuable. So the society is inherently less valuable on every factor. The only changing thing that make confuse people is technological changes, improvements, which are actually slowing down, like the potential of those improvements. So now what just like how that's slowing down potentially, what you're having though is also the slowdown of artists coming out, because you can't just field guys you're not sure of as much because you got to make your money. So these artists desire to be known, and people desire to have new artists. So they have to find new ways to get it. And this is what we're seeing with the internet and all the streaming services, etc. So people are trying to fill in, find ways to do that. And this is operating at a lower cost. But it also is like, because it's easier or these other venues are there, it's more people can, it's also less valuable, and it's also harder for you to find it because with TV and radio, someone's just telling you and showing you that. So late night television fills the gap to a degree because they're an audience with a certain amount of viewers that are pretty big, and then they're putting the act on for you to see it, like, oh, this is some new guy, right? And all of this to me started with Dave Chappelle. So I went on talked about that before. So, with his show and stuff like that. So I think Dave Chappelle is really cool for that, for rappers and stuff, for Kanye West first performed on his show, for example, and the Roots and all that cool stuff. If I believe Roots was on it, yeah. So so when you have these late night guys coming on, people are being introduced to them. Now, do I think this is as good as radio? No. And the reason why I don't think it's as good as radio, because like there's only a certain segment of people that saw it, and there's people are not there for that, and they're going to forget about it because it's not being repeated to them. A lot of songs that become hits on the radio is because they play it so many times. There's a repetitivity to it, and that's lacking from the radio. So in that regard, it doesn't adequately fill the gap, right? So that's pretty much what that is. That's the problem with that. So it does fill it, but it doesn't. They don't equate, and they're not relatively close in effectiveness. Late night does not effectively replace or substitute the radio. So I gave some examples of that. There's a lot of other factors about this as well, but I gave the economic angle because no one ever talks about that. And then when I'm talking about that, I can make these statements, but maybe people don't know what those are. So I'm going to assume that people don't, and then just kind of like explain that, which is, goes a little bit back. So, those are the reasons why. And in contrast, to that, not contrast, but to show you something, if we continue the line of reasons, as society gets back wealthier, all right, you could judge the wealth like this, you will see more and more fringe music being pushed and promoted by companies again, by the radio and all the other stuff. Once again, it will start to happen again because they're wealthier, and so they can afford to do so. In times, example, just to relate it back to you guys, because you guys may not be corporate holders or people in business. When you're wealthier, right? When you get an increased paycheck, or you win the lottery or whatever, you buy more groceries and buy items that you might not buy, like you buy more electronic devices or whatever it is. You could buy two. You could buy for your kid. You could buy for your cousin. You could buy for your friend. When you only have a job that can pay the bills, you kind of just buy food. Maybe occasionally you buy something you like, or some other thing, and you rarely buy something from your friend, for the majority of people, if you ever do. And donate, you don't donate as much, right? It's the similar thing that businesses do. So they look at it and they go, you know what, like, we can't afford that, we maybe it would be cool to check it out and get new numbers and stuff, but we're not going to do that. So that's kind of what it is. It doesn't properly replace. So I'll just substitute radio. So but it's nice, and I think that they should continue doing it. Moving to the next question. Why doesn't the radio play alternative hip hop? Okay, I think I just answered that question. I think I answered the question previously before, why the radio doesn't play alternative hip hop. The radio doesn't play alternative hip hop because alternative hip hop is not profitable enough. It hasn't proven itself to be profitable enough. And so there's scales, right? So some things inherently perform better at smaller magnitudes, but you can increase the volume of that, right? So some short stories operate good as short stories, right? They're not long stories, they're not novels, but you can package short stories together to make an anthology. Oh, now it's the same as a novel, and you can raise the price to that. Or you can increase the frequency at which you publish short stories, right? So that also works, right? So there's different ways to do that. So like you can increase volume. Well, some things are just better to a large scale, the same kind of thing. And pop music is better to large scales because the pop music means popular music, right? What is on average popular with people. And alternative music is not pop music, so it's not the average of what's popular with everyone. So the scaling doesn't also match. So it's again, that's the reason for that. And now times change, and what was alternative can become popular, right? Cultures shift and slide left and right all the time, right? Up and down. Um, so there's that dynamic nature to things, right? But if you're an investor and these people are really businessmen slash investors, not entrepreneurs slash investors, they're going to look at it and go, well, we just want to make money and use this formula. So they don't really play alternative hip hop for those reasons, which is, it's super simple. Like, it doesn't give me the maximal returns. And if we look at, like, you go on the internet and just YouTube right now and look at, like, Taylor Swift or Ellie Golden or something like that, the chick that sings "Burn" and stuff, and she has like 500 million almost a billion views, and Taylor Swift I think has like a billion or something like that, or something close or over. That's one person, and I could go find a rap video. They're not that high. They're high, don't get me wrong, but they're not like that. Um, so one is more popular. Now you go into racism or whatever, which is ridiculous, but um, the fact is that the majority of people in the North America, and I'm not saying United States of America, I'm saying North America. That includes Canada. Canada's on American Canada. They are white. Okay, even people in Mexico and other Mexicans, there's white people in Mexico too. Okay, so and there's white Hispanics, Hispanic, and white Latinos. Okay, so there's a lot of people that are white, and there's more people that are white than there's black people in the Americas. So those things sell better because they're more popular, right? People relate to them easier. So yeah, if you were the radio, you're gonna want to play that because it sells more versus, I don't know, polka dot music or something. It's just like an easier kind of logic, right? Like this white music sells, and like Asian music doesn't sell, right? Because there's not a lot of Asians, right? So it's just a really like simple kind of thing, and the radio doesn't play alternative hip hop because hip hop is like the normal music now. It's like a world music. It's like second to reggae as the music that is like that's now inherently in every music form almost now. Reggae is pretty much in like everything now. Unless you go to like niche scenes, niche joints, anything in popular. So it's so again, that's why they don't do it, because you're like, these things are alternative and they're not in stuff, and we're not playing to niche markets. Now, when you can have local radio or niche radio, that can work. But again, like I said this on the question, in the previous question, if this is a segment that you listen to, what I'll do, the link for that will be there, and the link for the original that I respond to these things will be there, and any related thing that I've talked about with it will be there. Article that I have, or if you have an article that relates, that explains it, please feel free to let me know. If I feel that it relates, I'll put your link below too. So, like, again, going back, like the like, if you're the radio, with the niche radio stations and stuff, like, it's hard for them to get money to start it, right? A lot of people are not good at business, but if you do have people that are good at business, or can become good at business, it's a skill that can be acquired. There's not enough investment because standard of living is lowered. So people are gonna have it harder to donate, and or raise loans, or etc., to open niches and to do them to become popular through transactions to let people know. It's just inherently harder, so there's going to be less. So the medium of radio, the medium, like I said, I don't know if I emphasized it well the last time. The medium of radio is not as diverse as it can be, um, and um, and that's why you don't see radio, like alternative hip hop, being properly um, displayed, or or really being represented. And yeah, it's not because radio is inherently like flawed and dying, because radio's bad. It's because um, just the economy is bad, and there's like a corporate stranglehold on it, and there's all these laws, so radio can't adapt fast enough or well enough. There's a lot of economic things on it, so that's kind of what it is. So, and those are the reasons why it doesn't. There's a lot more. I don't want to go too long, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to move to the next question. How does the Telecommunications Act of 1996 play into the loss of diversity in radio? Okay, so I talked about this, I believe, prior, and you guys can click the link again below and check that out. Um, uh, this is big, and I could answer it really directly. Like, again, I could answer it, but like I don't really explain why if I just answer right adequately. So it's like, how does it affect it? Well, the Telecommunications Act affects it because it creates a kind of a monopoly, right? It creates monopoly forces, and so that's why it affects it. And once you have a monopoly, it inherently leads to the loss of diversity in any sector. So, like, there's moments that monopolies arguably can be good, but monopolies are rarely ever good in the long term, and monopolies usually like bring ruination to everything. This is different from a monopsony, because like people might hear this statement and go, "Oh, monopolies are always bad." No, monopsonies are natural monopolies that form naturally through market forces, right? They just naturally form, like islands form in the ocean and then they sink, right? It just happens, right? One year, this is hot. These kind of fashions hot, and then it goes out of style, and then it comes back again later, right? These things happen every now and then, right? A guy like basketball, like this guy could be the best player, like, and then like he'll fade eventually, and there'll be a new guy, or there might not be a new guy for a long, it might be a bunch of guys, right? It's competitive, more competitive, right? Like there's a Will Chamberlain, and now there's a whole bunch of guys, right? Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell, or Will Chamberlain pretty much had a monopoly, right? On basketball, if you want to put it this way. And then now it's just super competitive with guys in the NBA, so it's really hard, right? There's some guys that are just really still super good, but they still do have competition. It's the combination of how they trade and exchange, right? That's kind of how things kind of work. So, so when you talk about the Communications Act, it lowered the standard because like it's inherently harder for people to do telecommunications, right? And this again relates to the radio. So it just affected those things on a fundamental level, and it made it easier for corporations to collude and that gobble and up all the smaller businesses and stuff like that. This is like newspapers and stuff, and like society has suffered from it, and people may not think it's a big deal because most people don't care about the news and stuff, but it affects the quality of music that you listen to, and even the TV, the quality of television that you watch, and the quality of on all these levels, right? And so like an alternative is the internet now that's finally developed, but it's still not an adequate replacement. It's still not fully there. It's coming to its own, but it's taken a long time. And if we never had the telecommunications law, the internet would still develop into its own. It'd be a little different, but we would have both things being rich. We wouldn't have one thing being really poor and devastated like TV, and then we have a net loss because of it. So that's that. And so we would see more people on TV, more acts on TV. Should be more TV channels. Like more alternative acts and stuff like that. Equate more music videos. All that kind of stuff should be more and easier to see. So it does play into that a lot. And again, people go by what's popular. I mean, that's how people learn and know of something, right? When you go to buy shoes, there's a lot of different shoes brands, but you buy this popular shoe brand because you like it, and you listen to the popular musician because you like him, and his word is going to inform and reach more people than another guy, right? So it's the same thing with companies. So it's the same thing with radio, right, or anything like that, and that's why it's a problem when you use force to the government to kind of like force yourself into the market and do these changes, because it does, you do lose diversity, and then it literally affects like new guys coming in and then becoming the big guy, kind of like Nike becoming huge or something like that. There can't be any new guy to replace Nike as easily. There can't be new styles that are being affected. It's harder. It's not gonna not happen, but it's just so much harder. And anything that's harder usually dies more and doesn't exist. Like it doesn't exist. So it takes longer for it to become where it is. So you see less of it still. So that's a kind of a smaller way of saying it. You know what I mean? But again, like so it's a problem. Like there's a lot of greater problems that come from it. But again, like I said before, people are already doing this. Like the Telecommunications Act just like normalized it more, and because they were already this was already happening. So it's kind of like a legal cover. It legitimized things that were going on by pretty much virtual government agents, or people that use government as agency. Most billionaires become billionaires because they use the government. They have some deep relation with the government. That's just how that works. So, and they become that way by forcing you to buy their goods, pretty much. So and it's usually about power. So when they control music, they control what influences you, and they control how they talk to you, and what you should buy and sell. And they can't control it absolutely. I don't know anyone that controls anything absolutely. But they can manipulate it to different degrees, and that's very important. So as most people get older, they're less open to change. So they're not going to want to change or adapt with this flowingness, right? Because they don't understand, and they have to now waste more energy to get data. So that literally creates a problem, which there's a literal fight against diversity, like new things. All right, being entered into their system. So those are I think that's pretty apt for a short. To explain it so it can be understood, not just like responded like yes and no, and a little bit. So I'm gonna go to the next question. Why can't the biggest sellers in hip hop also top the Billboard charts? Okay, I think I did a pretty good job answering this the last time. I just think it's because of the Billboard chart system is antiquated. It relates to the telecommunications question that I said before. You can find a link for that below if you're not listening to the full pod, which is a segment. You can listen to my original response. I was super tired. Man, I was tired. And hungry. And you could go check for that below. It's just because the system doesn't properly reflect. They're updating the system now to better measure to get a better representation, but it's still not perfect. And so when you look at it, you go, well, yeah, with the biggest guys, the biggest guys are doing similar numbers to what they were doing before. Everybody's doing depreciated numbers, but they're doing similar numbers to what they were doing before. And they're staples. So I think that it's like I would have to have an examples of guys right here to like explain that and then like like put them in common because it's more nebulous. But I think that they are doing well. They're doing about the same that they would do, kinda. It's a little harder to see it, but I think it's a combination that they do less work. I think it's a combination that they're not as trendy as they used to because you know that they're good. I think it's a combination of the fact that like people in their markets kind of like know who they are, like, and as their markets age with them, like they don't really like go out and go get it the same way. Like they know how to get it. Like I think there's a bunch of things that affect um, the charting of that, and but I think once you update it, like if you're looking by what people search for on the internet, but looking by their subscribers and the interactions of their subscribers in getting music or listening to the music, I think that would better represent and what's okay. And to prove my point, why they sell is when Jay did whatever it was with Beyonce. I don't know, man. I don't remember what it was. They did that. They did that whole thing. Um, with that album, and it would be cool if I had Ab Zero for this because he's more of a music guy than I am, and the name escapes me at this moment. Since it's off the dome, I'm not really gonna stop and go look for it, right? So, but you know what I'm talking about. Did it with Beyonce. They had a big concert. So when people were saying, "Oh, they're gonna get divorced," and blah 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 blah, and this crap, this was before also like Solange, attacked him in an elevator. When if you look at Jay, the album wasn't good. I think it was the Magna Carta. I think that was what it was. But Jay's name, the brand, Jay's brand, made that go platinum, right? And most people said it wasn't as good. I'd never heard it, but they were like, it wasn't that good. But it went platinum off the strength of Jay's name. The deals that Jay got, the marketability of it was huge. And so if you think about it in this way, it's like Jay's brand is really powerful. So he's actually would top charts when you adjust for that, because you're adjusting for exchanges. Like back in the day when people were like, we didn't have the wireless communications and we didn't have the instantaneous data. The way data collected was a lot more indirect, and it was harder to get a more accurate data. We have a lot of data now, more data than we had before, so it's easier. So you're literally like, the way we collected data is like older. It's like going around with a survey man who's like going around taking surveys of what people want, versus like people like clicking a button and telling you, or writing you and telling you what they want. Like, one is how the questions are phrased, the agenda setter, and two, it takes days for me to get that response back. Like, and then by then people have new stuff or new things are going. It's slower. So back then we were like, you were figuring out what people wanted and what was hot. Like it was slower, and what was good. So that the Billboard charts like is imprecise then and now, but it was even more imprecise then in a way, right? And like now we have all these ways to track things better and get more information by reading comments or whatever a lot faster, right? People had comments then too. They just talked about it and they didn't record it as well, right? Now everybody could type, so you see it. It's permanent, and it has as more permanency, and so you could pay a guy to go read that. You know what I mean? To reflect these things in Billboard charts or whatever, right? So that's what I mean. Like the Billboard chart system is so antiquated, like to the massive changes in technology. And this is going back to like from the rock and roll. It's way out of date with tracking systems. It's like using Civil War technology in like this in the modern war world from war. Like you could do it and it's still good. I mean, a gun's a gun, but artillery, but the range and the ease is it's kind of like, it's not, it's kind of a problem. So that's how I look at the Billboard charts, right? And at their core, that's what they're supposed to measure. So you know, yeah, like the biggest sellers are still actually the biggest sellers. That's why they're, we just said, the biggest sellers. So I that's the reason why I think I did a better job answering it this time. It's like way many days later, but yeah, So but you can listen to both. Um, Going to the next question. So, are the Billboard charts a fair way to gauge music popularity? Okay, so this is a very similar question to the one I just answered before, and again, you could check the link for that or check the link to my original response. And yeah, I mean, no, they're not. I mean, no, they're not a fair way to gauge music popularity. They're inherently flawed, as I mentioned. All the reasons that I mentioned before hold true in this. The Billboard charts are not a fair way to gauge music popularity because they're flawed. They've made changes to be better, but they're still not there. And I do have a segment that I'm going to link that I haven't released yet, and I propose in music talks group talks or group sessions, an idea for metrics that we can have for music to make it more accurate. So, but I think now, add in streaming or how much views people have, and the ads add up to a sale for an album or whatever it is. I think that's a much better system, and so I think that's the reason why J. Cole and people like that went up, like Ab Zero stated in a pod and in an article, I think. So you could definitely, like, check that, and when we get that, we'll put the link. We have a lot of stuff in up on the storage, man. So to get those out to you. So I think I think those are the reasons why. I think that's, like, it's getting better though. I think it'll get better. I think that one of the problems with the Billboard charts is that it's the only one, kind of, to me. Like, the thing that people go, yeah, it's like there's a thing called creative destruction in economics, right? It was by Peter Schumpeter, and applying it here, right? Just because something's a big brand name, like a big thing like Shell or Exxon or like J, or or Pac or something, doesn't mean that there shouldn't be ever be something to replace it, or like do it better, or find a new way to do it, or just it dies, right? There should be competition to the Billboard charts, right? There should be another Billboard chart, you know what I mean, like Max's Billboard charts or whatever, that should organically come up and rival it. What will happen is Max's and Billy's have different strengths and weaknesses. These ideas, you could take what's successful, and then it can make a better Billboard chart. So the Billboard chart can do a better job. That's why we have everything. Everything's better like that. Like, that's why we have roads now and stuff like that. Because people were making kind of different kind of roads for a while. So, that's why we have highways and stuff and all that stuff like that, and lowways and stuff. So, like the normal ground. So, that all of that stuff is exists and stuff, and there's a reason for that, because of competition and people trying different things and synergizing ideas and stuff like that, right? So that's what you kind of need to do, and if that happens, I think that the billboards would even faster and more accurately gauge music, because you could have better billboard like things in different niches, that you could now take the data from the ones that are accurate and put it into like a bigger billboard and stuff like that. So I mean, that's like, that's a lot easier. So I think those are things that can be done. I think that answers the those questions, and these seem to be all the questions, and I'm going to thank you guys for listening to me, and you can listen to the full pod below for that, and you guys could also listen to me answer my RJ's responses, where I answer a lot of Mike's thoughts, and pretty much anything else. If I find something on the internet, an article, comments, whatever, I'll actually respond to them. You could my thoughts will be there, and the RJ's thoughts. You guys could listen to that for something very similar. If you want to hear something different, you could maybe hear my voice or somebody else. do audio commentary, not commentary, audio recorded for a novel. So you can listen to an audio novel, or the revision of an actual article. Just being transferred, converted into an audio article. So which the link to the real article below. So check for those things. Thank you guys for listening to me, and I do respect and enjoy hearing anything you have to say. And if you want me to do anything else, a response like the RJ's responses, just tell me directly in a message, or you can comment below. I get actually used to get a lot of messages for my stuff. People ask me a lot of stuff every day, actually, like that, about business, like what is this, what's this, you're really accurate, so what's going to happen in here, and this and this, that. And so I get a lot of repeat people asking me questions like after, like, yeah, you were right, so what about that? And you guys could be sure to do that, and it could be anything. I mean, people ask me questions for like literally like I'm the internet, so like I'm Google or something. So, but feel free to do it. I'm trying to record them, so to make it easier. I thought about that a while back, and it'd be easier to share that with everybody, so it can help more people. And if we disagree, I actually like when sometimes we have differences, because I learn new things, right? If you're right, I like being like that. If you're right, then and I'm wrong, then that allows me to correct myself and become right faster. But you have to prove to me that you're right, right? And be civil about it, as I could be wrong, as I'm not God. Thanks.